last round? I know. For the last round tonight, I've somehow gotten shortchanged a little bit on time. We were going to do something a little bit interesting on this last round, and that is to give you some questions that you should both attack and then come up with some answers to them. And then each table will report out a key nugget or two that came up in their own table. We'll see how the time goes on that, but that's what our objective will be, to attempt to do that. But we're already at 8:15. So my topic for tonight, well, you saw it on the prior slide. It's to introduce to you some new concepts in learning theory, starting with performance support, some virtual workshops, business simulations, and expert systems, which are now being called learning agents. I'm going to have to go through this very fast because there's more than 10 minutes worth of material here, and I'm going to try to compress it. Anybody who would like a copy of these slides, just give me an email, and you can look at the slides in a little more detail, things that I can't quite get to. And then the buzz issues. First is a slide that represents some research that was done, published in Harvard Business Review, and I'm going to go very quickly on this. And the stuff above the blue line is the traditional education and training. And the stuff below the blue line, which was not discussed in the research, is what we would call learn while doing or on the job. You know what traditional education and training is: brick and mortar, face-to-face, instructor-led, or virtual instructor-led, and the content is instructional. That type of training, or education and learning, makes up about 10% to 30% range of learning in the organizational world. The bottom, the below the blue line, which I'll describe in a moment, makes up about 70 to 90% of learning. The research, which was a capstone of much prior research, maintained that if you do well in education and training, which we sometimes say focusing on your folks, you will beat your competition. In fact, it went on to say, if you have money to invest, either invest in your people or go down the street and invest in your competitor who is investing in their people. Here's the thing for us as knowledge managers. The stuff above the blue line is certainly part of knowledge management, and we oftentimes call ourselves, or have as our objective, creating a learning organization. So clearly the people that are involved in education and training are part of the KM sphere. But oftentimes they don't think of themselves as such. They say, well, we're educators and trainers, and KM is nothing but portals over there in the CIO shop. Well, we've got to educate them about that. But clearly this stuff below the blue line is the domain, the sweet spot of knowledge management. Virtual communications between people. People reflecting. This is to indicate some form of reflection and innovation and creativity. Knowledge bases and mentoring, coaching, and otherwise people sharing with each other. This is the sweet spot of KM. So here's the question I would ask of you. If it's been well established that if you invest in the stuff above the blue line, you'll beat the competition, but it only represents 10 to 30% of learning, what about 5 or 10 years from now? What will the research say about those companies that invest in the stuff below the blue line, which represents 70 to 90% learning? I'll let you make that deduction yourself. One other thing down here, it's a little hidden by my computer, is another term that you need to be aware of. It's called performance support. Many trainers have never even heard that word or phrase. They need to know it. Performance support is a very key ingredient of what knowledge management is all about. We oftentimes say get the best knowledge of the right person at just the right time. That's exactly performance support. So performance support is a very descriptive term for knowledge management. There are many descriptive terms for knowledge management. Performance support is clearly one of them. So, KM, our employees, knowledge is our greatest asset. Just by way of a little humor here, if that's discussing human capital is our most important asset, consider this. You can't quite read that. It says, our employees are our greatest asset. I say we sell them. Next technology is virtual classes. How many people are familiar with WebEx? This is WebEx on steroids. This technology now exists. It hasn't yet been brought to the marketplace. We're going to have it available through the KM Institute anytime now. It's on my computer. I'm going to be experimenting with it this month. By next month, we'll be doing virtual classes in video. That means somebody like that guy up there in the upper left-hand corner who might be a mentor can have any number of people in the class, and at any point in time in the class, 2 or 3 or 4 of them can be on the video screen conversing with the mentor, and the other people in the class will be seeing that conversation. This is worlds ahead of hearing something over the telephone while watching a TV screen of a PowerPoint presentation. This is the next generation of the thing that the company that's been called WebEx. WebEx on steroids. When we talk about having relationships with people but only talking to them or listening to them on the phone is a lot different than having face-to-face via video. Now, it is virtual video. It's not real world, sitting there touchy-feely and eyeball contact exactly across the room from each other, but it's the next best thing. And it's going to revolutionize education and training, in my opinion. Next topic, simulations. People say to me, why does a certification program not give you certification based on true, false, multiple choice? In other words, 150 questions, if you can answer it, you're certified. And I say, that's a bunch of hooey. That's the information age thinking. That's not the knowledge age thinking. The knowledge age thinking certification should be based on competency. And I've never seen a test yet that's both valid and proves your competency based on true, false, and multiple choice. So we need to think about what are the real training tools and techniques of the future generation, which is already starting. And I'm not talking about your future generation. I'm talking about the next generation of education and training and certification. And one of them is going to be simulations. And next month, we'll be having at the KM Institute the first sample of a simulation. It's already done. We're not having to do this one, but it's going to be a test for us to create the next generation of it. This generation is about change management, a critically important issue in knowledge management. I'm going to just give you a sampling of what a simulation about change management is all about. So here's a person. Here's the startup of the game. It's very much just graphics as opposed to video. And let's see, this comes from a company called Experience Point. And this particular product, because it's about change management, is called Experience Change. Very quickly, how it works is you come in as a consultant to this company, or you're the KM person or the change management person, and you can click on, in fact, you can't quite see it here, but behind this picture you can see there's obviously rooms set up as if that's the office space. Each office has the name of somebody like Jennifer Smith, the VP of Technology. And if you click on Jennifer Smith, you'll get the same as you did here by clicking on Brian Johnson, the president. And when you click on Brian Johnson, there he is, and there's the kinds of questions you could be talking to Brian about. And here's your dialogue down the bottom. You get a feel for what's going on in this company, and then you have to make your tactics and strategies. And here's a whole bunch of tactics and strategies you might come up with. And when you come up with them, you have metrics. Your budget for this change management is 104 weeks. You see that up in the upper left-hand corner, $500,000. And if you're successful, your conversion meter will get up to some goal, in this case established at 60%. So you make a decision about a couple of the tactics you're going to apply. And you see, in this case, they chose to do something, employee interviews. It took 3 weeks and $20,000. You see the tick down. But it was a good thing to do, and you did it well. And therefore, you've had a tick up on your conversion meter. And if you do these things well, you will, on budget, on time, get the change management accomplished. And you'll be interviewed on national TV, and your company's stock price will go up, and all of those good things. My question to you we'll come back to in the buzz session. But this is very powerful technology to teach real-world performance of things like change management and knowledge management. And then finally, a breakthrough that I've been waiting for 2 decades. Most of you will recognize the term expert systems. And that's the term we did use back in the 1980s. My first position was called Chief Knowledge Engineer. That term knowledge engineer dates back to the expert systems days. That's what we used to call people who were doing expert systems. We don't generally use that too much more in knowledge management, but that's some of the early knowledge management titles, knowledge engineers. But it comes from expert systems. And we have this major issue that every one of us faces. Every single company, even other countries outside of the United States, have this mature group and the baby boomers that are getting very close, if not already retiring. And we need to capture the knowledge, and it's a retention issue. There's hardly a company I talk to that doesn't say this is one of the most important pressing issues of KM. How are we going to do it? There's many techniques. NASA is very good at having done a number of things. I'm going to tell you now about one of the maybe end game technologies for doing that knowledge capture.